Hello, my name is Kevin Medler, and I'm doing a presentation on Bruno Taut. Bruno was born in Berlin, Germany in May of 1880 and passed away in December of 1938. He was a German architect and theorist, painter, pioneer of color in modern architecture, and an urban planner and early fan of the Garden City movement. Taut played an extremely vital role in furthering the Expressionist movement. He is celebrated for his creative and artistic use of color that gave Berlin an urban and modern look. Futuristic ideals and techniques of the avant-garde were of his forte, and his work inspired Le Corbusier and Walter Gropius. Originally, he was born in Germany. Eventually, he moved to England to learn further, and beginning of World War I, he moved to Japan to learn and teach, and finally moved to Turkey, where he passed away. Taut was born and went to school in Germany. In 1903, he was employed by Bruno Moring, an important Art Nouveau architect in Berlin, where he acquainted himself with the Jugendstil and new building methods combining steel with masonry. From 1904 to 1908, Taut worked in Stuttgart for Theodor Fischer and studied urban planning. Hermann Matthias suggested him to visit England in 1910 to learn the Garden City philosophy, and also introduced him to some of the Deutscher Werkbund groups of architects, including Walter Gropius. At the beginning of World War I, Taut was a pacifist and moved to Japan for a few years. Taut's writing on the Japanese minimalist aesthetic found an appreciative audience in Japan and subsequently influenced the work of Le Corbusier and Walter Gropius. He was eventually offered a position as a professor of architecture at the State Academy of Fine Arts in Istanbul. Taut relocated to Turkey in 1936. Here are some examples of Bruno Taut's work. This first example is of the Falkenberg estate. Taut's first large project came in 1913. He became a committed follower to the Garden City movement, as evidenced by his design for the Falkenberg estate. In particular, he was known for his fascination with ideal utopian cities in which urban spaces were able to coexist in harmony with the natural world. Much of his utopian idealism came from his interest in the Garden City movement led by Sir Ebenezer Howard. In 1924, Taut was made chief architect of GAHAG, a Berlin public housing cooperative, and was the main designer of several successful large residential developments. Taut worked for the city architect of Berlin, Martin Wagner, and on some of Berlin's modernist housing estates, now recognized as UNESCO World Heritage Sites, collaborating with contemporaries Walter Gropius and Martin Wagner. Here are more examples of the Falkenberg estate. This is a zoomed out version of the previous one. As we can see here, he really enjoys using color and how he has pastel colors as well as primary colors are the main source of his application to the facades. He combined bold, bright colors in ways that no one had yet dared consider for the external of estate houses. Here's another application of the paint itself. He really liked the idea of using paint because as to prior, where facades were very expensive and lavish to add decoration, like in order to make ornate columns or capitals that adorn the columns themselves, it took a lot of expertise of like masonry, and it took a long time and it was very expensive to make these things as compared to with just applying some color to the facades of the buildings. It allowed for the residents to have a happier mindset, as well as added a little bit of liveliness to the city itself. Here's another example. He chose to use the pastel blue here, and you can see the surrounding gardens. This is the Garden City movement, and he really enjoyed mixing gardens to everyday living themselves. Here's another picture of the pastels he chose to use. He was known to have on like the bright side of the house, very bright walls, it would be dark reds and blues, and on the darker sides of the house, there was in darker rooms there would be brighter colors. And this is Taut's single best known architectural achievement, called the Glass Pavilion. The dome has a double glass outer layer with colored glass prisms on the inside and reflective glass on the outside. Taut's Glass Pavilion was the first building importance made of glass bricks. Here's an example from the outside itself. The interior is a view of the reflectivity of the room itself. Unfortunately, there's only black and white photos of the pavilion itself that were taken, and the pavilion did not stand long before it was demolished. Here's an interior view of the glass bricks on the roof, as well as the reflectivity. Here, more usage of those same glass bricks that go up the staircase and on the facade. Here is eventually, this is 1919, Taut decided to take a step back from the modernist and contemporary-esque. He originally was very a forward thinker, and he continued to be a forward thinker. He chose to be a little more practical in this stage of his life, where he decided to develop an urban concept for planning and reconfiguration of European cities to overcome natural and social differences by the means of architecture. Basically, this is called the Crown City, and the concept is an urban scale plan where in the middle, right here, there's a larger building, which is considered the crown of the city itself, like the jewel on top of the head. And this is another picture of it. This is later on in 1925, and it is called the Hoffenstein Siedlung. It is one of 6 World Heritage Sites, instilled new ideals of urban planning, paid attention to details to brighten the day-to-day life. As we can see here, it's in the shape of a horseshoe, and it later became called the Horseshoe. Also, we can see here the Central Park area, which was one of the first times where they hired a agriculturalist to design the central area. And we can see the very thin walls themselves, as compared to previously they would make a giant square or rectangle shape to basically crunch together all of these individual units. This is one of the first times they basically snaked out all of the units, and commoners were upset actually of this, because they didn't think that they were worthy of having light and freedom and breathable living in good conditions, which is crazy for modern day thinking. This goes on to show that even though in the previous drawing, the walls themselves, the facades are very stark and white, and it shows the attention to color and detail that he uses throughout the site itself. All the doors have different pastel colors and decoration adorned on them. And there's another photo from the interior. Even though we can see the white stucco, inset into each one of the patios is the pastel blue color, as well as the central gathering space. And finally is the manifesto itself, away or down with seriousness. I'll read from here. It says, "Away with the sourpusses, the wailing willies, the sober sides, the brow furs, the eternally serious, the sweet sour ones, the forever important. Important, important. this damned habit of acting important. Tombstone and cemetery facades in front of junk stops and old clothes stores. Smash the shell lime Doric, Ionic, and Corinthian columns. Demolish the pinheads. Down with the respectability of sandstone and plate glass and fragments, with the rubbish of marble and precious wood, to the garage heap with all that junk. Oh, our concepts, space, home, style. Ugh, how these concepts stink. Destroy them. Put an end to them. Let nothing remain. Chase away their schools. Let the professorial wigs fly. We'll play catch with them. Blast, blast. Let the dusty, matted, gummed up worlds of concepts, ideologies, and systems feel our cold north wind. Death to the concept lice. Death to everything stuffy. Death to everything called title, dignity, authority. Down with everything serious. Down with all camels that won't go through the eye of a needle, with all the worshippers of Mammoth and Moloch. The worshippers of force must knuckle under force. We are sick of their blood-sucking, caterwauling in the early light. In the distant shines tomorrow. Hooray, 3 times hooray for our kingdom without force. Hooray for transparent, the clear. Hooray for purity. Hooray for crystal. Hooray, and again hooray for the fluid, the graceful, the angular, the sparkling, the flashing, the light. Hooray for everlasting architecture. As we can see here in this excerpt, he basically disdains all formal previous architecture examples of the Doric, Ionic, Corinthian columns, and just destroy all formal concepts of everything previously known. And instead, he says we should go for having transparent, clear glass and color and all of these things that he chooses to instill into all of his projects. And this is Bruno Taut's state of mind and his life.